Chris Martin for CG Tuts, and welcome to the third and final portion of our Apple tutorial. So when we left off, we had finished rendering everything out of Cinema4D using multipass rendering and our object buffers. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to import everything back into After Effects. We're going to isolate all the objects in the scene, and we're going to apply our post effects. So let's go ahead and jump into After Effects here, and we'll double click on here. And the apple.aec, this is the file that was generated in After Effects when you select this compositing file here. It generates that AEC file. So when we double click that, After Effects is going to do a little calculating, and it brings in all of our assets that we need to set this up. So you just double click on the Cinema4D comp, and everything is just pulled in here. Let's go ahead and shorten this up, trim that. And the first thing I like to do is do a little housekeeping here. I'm going to take this file, which is the TIFF file, and I'm going to put it in the Special Passes folder. I'm going to rename this Comps and rename this 3D Pass, and actually keep that on top. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to drag the TIFF file into the new comp window, and then I'm going to start grabbing these object buffers into this comp. So the first object buffer, if we double click it, is the bullet. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to drag it on top of the apple, and then under the track mat I'm going to select Luma Mat, and you can see here it is now isolated. So let's shut that off. Take that, drag that into the comps, Control D to duplicate that, and then double click the second one. And then for object buffer 2, which is the apple, you can see we want to do the same thing, but I'll just select the object buffer 1 and hold the Alt key on the computer and just drag that on top of this one. So now we have our apple isolated. Alright, so we can shut that down. And we had actually done a third object buffer for the real wave, but we're not really going to use that, so this is just something extra in here. Okay, so the next step, I'm going to right click, New Solid, make that a black solid. And I'm going to go to Effect, Null Light Factory, LF Glow. And that's going to put this little flare over here in the top left of our comp window. Now I'm going to turn the transfer mode of that to screen. And what you need to understand is that this layer is a 2D layer, and the Null Light Factory LF Glow has no concept of 3D space or anything. But if you'll remember, back over in Cinema4D, we put this external compositing tag on the bullet, and that information has now been transferred over into After Effects. You can see this layer right here. So what we want to do is somehow get the information here from this 2D layer, and we want it to understand what's going on here on this 3D layer, because we want to attach the glow to the bullet. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do that with an expression, and I have an expression that I actually got from John over at MotionWorks. I don't know where he got it, but we're going to put an expression on this black solid layer, which has got the Null Light Factory on it. So thanks, John. Okay, so what we're going to do is we want this to Alt click the light source location, and then we want to paste that expression into here. Now we need to change this from flare to the name of the layer that we want it to act upon, which is Rocket 01, and then just click out of here. Now you'll see that the flare is now connected to our bullet. Pretty cool. Now I'd love to sit here and tell you that I know exactly what this expression means, but I would be lying to you. I do not even attempt to call myself a coder. But bottom line, if you take the expression that I've included with this tutorial and you copy it into here and change this to Rocket 01, then you'll be in good shape. Okay? So now that's all that we have left to do is to change the color of the flare and then keyframe its brightness. So I'm going to change this to a sort of a red color. And then at frame, let's see, I think it's about 39. Yeah, 39. We want to put a keyframe. And then we're going to go up to frame 50. Actually, the keyframe, we want that to be 0. And then we'll go up to frame 50. And we'll change this to, I think I used 119. And then I think I went to 54. And we put another keyframe there. And then at 62, put another keyframe and take that back down to 0. So when it comes through, the flare kind of brightens the place up and then it leaves. This is probably a good place to save. See if I can spell. Okay. You know, and to just you know, kind of show you the versatility of having this 3D information on this rocket layer, which is the bullet. You know, we could come over here and say text and type in okay, and then turn that into a 3D layer, and then take the position of this one and the position of the bullet layer and alt click on here and pick whip this to the position of the rocket layer. And now, well, let's go ahead and let's flip this around on the Y 180 degrees. So now our text is following the bullet. So that's not actually something we're doing in this tutorial, but I just thought I'd show that to you because it's kind of cool. Okay, so now it's time to go ahead and add some effects to these different elements. So I'm going to go ahead and actually we didn't rename this. This should be bullet. I am going to drag my bullet down here into the scene, and I'm just going to start adding some effects. I think the first thing I added, and, you know, and this is somewhere where you can just play around to see what you want to do. I was just, you know, kind of goofing off, playing around with this when I came up with this stuff. So I think for the curves, I just darkened this a little bit. Let me get to where you can see this too. And then I put a hue saturation, drag that on the bullet, and I said colorize 1 here, and this was 209. I'm sorry, 209. And then we put a glow on it. Kind of brightens it up a bit. And then I found this CC Drizzle, and that's what gave our bullet that little shimmering look. So I'm going to go ahead and take this to 0, and then at frame 46 I'm going to put a keyframe there and change this to 1. So now we've got our, you can see our bullet sort of does that little shimmering effect, which is kind of cool. Go ahead and save that. Okay, now let's go ahead and pull our apple into here, and let's do some effect work on it as well. We start out with curves. Drag that on there, and I think all I did here was pull up the midtones of the red a little bit, and I used a glow on this as well. Again with the defaults, so that kind of brightens that up. You can see that it makes a big difference. And the other thing that we used here that really made a big difference was the echo. So let me throw that on there, and that really picks it up a little bit. And what I did was keyframe the number of echoes from 46. I had 0. I keyframe that, and then I went to 51, and I put that at 1. So let's just take a look at that. So the bullet goes through, got our glow, and the echoes start working on the apple, and it really just starts, you know, giving it a really bright look as it tears it apart before it starts to fall. Okay, so the last thing I did was just take everything and go to Layer Pre-Compose and call it Apple. Click OK, and I put some motion blur on the pre-comp, and this is a Real Smart Motion Blur. And if you guys don't know what that is, that's you want to check that out. It's from Revision Effects. It's you know, absolutely one of the best, you know, motion blur plugins that you can find. So you'll definitely want to check that out. But anyway, that sort of wraps up the Apple tutorial. So anyway, again, my name is Chris Martin for CG Tuts, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thanks.